You don't want to say it's just a Category 1. I know that, a lot of people think that, and they think even, just a Category 2. Usually people really start paying attention with Cat 3 or higher. This is a good reminder that a 1 is powerful. It can do a lot of damage. And if you're in the eye wall of that, even not in the eye wall, this thing came in Matagorda, Galveston. We saw Molly, who was 83 miles from the center of it in Galveston, getting hammered for hours on Monday. You saw the water come up here, in this area. We had water 3, 4, 5 feet. So this is significant. Most of your power outages north and south of Houston right now, they have gone down significantly. But again, still over 1 million people is a lot without power. And because of all the heat, they've issued heat advisories, the National Weather Service in Houston, and they wouldn't typically do that because this heat isn't like exceptional, but because people don't have power, they issued the heat advisory. There are multiple cooling centers that are open, and please take advantage of those. Humidity, it's up already in Houston. 75 is our dew point with a temperature of 85 this afternoon. Higher the dew point, the more humid it feels outside. And notice that we do have our heat indices in the 90s and triple digits, which can be deadly here into Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and that heat is going to continue as we head not only into tomorrow, but Sunday as well. And Reynolds, there's really no end in sight for this one.
Rain and storms, so maybe a few bumps here or there. Right now, we're not seeing any major airport delays. Lots of green bubbles on the map, but as we move through the day and see some of those storms bubbling up, we could see a bit more turbulence like we're already seeing. You can see we've got a little bit of light turbulence here showing up near the Carolinas, and that is going to be in line where we're seeing the rain and the storms as well. So maybe a bit bumpy, and you know how it goes. You're on one of those flights, you're like, I'm in a hurry. I don't need to stop and get water or a snack or anything. I'll get it once I'm on the plane, and then the plane takes off and it's too bumpy and you're, stuck in your seat for 2.5 hours without any water or anything. So maybe if you know that you're flying around storms, that it might be a little bit bumpy in places like New York, down through the Carolinas, maybe portions of the Gulf Coast as well. Grab that refillable water bottle before you leave the house and fill it up at one of those refillable areas that they have all over the airports these days. Heavy rain mixed in with the light rain here from the Carolinas up through Virginia, Delmarva getting some of that as well. Already seeing some flooding issues this morning, which tells me you're going to run into some ponding on the roadways. Great morning as you're waking up this morning to give yourself a little bit of extra time heading out the door. Don't want to be rushing when you're dealing with some heavy rain across some major thoroughfares. You can see a flash flood warning here for Coleridge, Liberty, and Siler City until 9 a.m. We had a couple inches already fall, Steph, and more on the way before all is said and done.
We wish we could get some. They're looking much drier. The heavier rain is going to be more along the east coast here with our showers that could create flooding. We have 3 to 5 inches possible, and of course locally heavier amounts, so you do have to keep that in mind. There's that risk for flash flooding that extends from South Carolina all the way up into Massachusetts, believe it or not. And we have a surface boundary and also upper level energy and moisture being streamed in from a high pressure. You can see kind of this mid to upper level energy right here. That's going to be riding up the coast as we go over the next couple of days. But we also have a surface boundary that is setting up the storms and the flash flooding already here into North Carolina. Yesterday, we saw some flooding, as a matter of fact, from the storms that were firing up around 9, 10 in the morning. We already had that flash flooding. So notice Coleridge, Liberty, Siler City under a flash flood warning until 9 a.m. What does that mean? That means that conditions are favorable for the development of flash flooding. It's imminent or it's occurring, I should say. When you have a flash flood warning, that means that it's imminent or it's occurring. And this is why there's a flash flood warning. Look at that. Right where that flash flood warning is, over the past 24 hours, we've seen over 5 inches of rain. And we've also seen some heavier rain down towards Wilmington, that Morehead City area. We're 4 to 7 inches below average on rainfall. And notice it's all streaming essentially along the 95 border, 95 corridor. And there's your surface feature. So you've got lift where this is. The winds are going to come in and then they go up. So all along this front, you are getting lifting that's happening, and the moisture is just streaming in from the Atlantic. So you have lift at the surface. This is going to give you some lift as well in the atmosphere. And you have this high pressure that's just tossing moisture all the way along the east coast here, right along the eastern coast. So all of that combined is giving us this messy weather, not only through the day, into the evening, we will still see it, and then into our Saturday as well. And unfortunately, it's going to make for rough beach conditions. So if this is a beach weekend for you, I'm so sorry. You're going to have to change some of those plans. I will say, look at that. Things much better as we head into our Sunday, Felicia.
That's going to be one of those kind of split. Also, if you're trying to spend time outside out west, maybe you just want to head to the pool. We've got our own hazards, and that is in the form of heat, which is one of the most dangerous weather things that we deal with, especially when you're talking about excessive heat warnings for places like Vegas through the San Joaquin Valley. When you're talking about places that are typically pretty toasty during the summer, having excessive heat warnings, you know it's hot out there. Even the heat advisories you have to take very seriously. For a place like, say, Furnace Creek in Death Valley National Park, the forecast 122 to 129 degrees. That sounds almost unreal, right? Take a look at the forecast for today. Sacramento 110, Fresno 110 for you, 115 in Phoenix. And this has been a prolonged stretch of heat that is very dangerous when you're not having that ability for your body to cool off. Tomorrow, the heat is sticking around as well. And it's not just there. We're watching the heat, but also the high humidity across the southeast up through that 95 corridor. Let me just tell you, when you're talking about a dew point of 76 degrees in New Orleans, I know New Orleans, you're no stranger to that humidity, to the heat, but a dew point of 76 degrees is making it almost impossible for your body to sweat and cool itself. It's like you're in a sauna. You just can't cool off. So we're looking at these temperatures today. Look at New Orleans. Your temperature, actual temperature is 91. Actual temperature in, say, Atlanta is 94. But with that dew point, New Orleans, you're feeling like 102. Meanwhile, in a place like Atlanta, we have slightly drier air in place, so you're not feeling as hot. That's where you can see that dew point really making that big difference. The July heat into the early part of next week, you see it here. We're up at 114 million people with temperatures above 95 degrees. That's just your temperature. You factor in that humidity with dew points, and that is going to make it feel even hotter. I mean, a dew point is 78 in New Orleans. There's just no way to cool down from that. We've got heat indices well into